All right, more changes from Bass. We got our front-facing sonar restrictions and news, and now we've got news on the opens and the EQs for 2025. I think we were all expecting a change. Even last week, I think I had talked about some of the things that we heard. Honestly, what we said is probably pretty close. And tonight we're going to break down the changes for the 2025 Bassmaster Opens and the EQs and talk about the good, the bad, maybe the ugly, the truth. What does it really mean for people that want to fish the opens, for elite anglers, EQ guys? And to help me break it down, I'm going to break it down with somebody that's been in the game for quite a while, has fished his fair share of opens, has been an Elite Series pro before, and help it break down here. So, welcome, Clark Ream. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going, man? Just
Pretty good.
Trying to get everything done for this off season, trying to line up guide trips and trying to handle the business side of fishing. Because I tell people this all the time: fishing is only 50% of the job of being a bass pro.
Absolutely. All right. Brian says we sound good, look good. As always, HellaBass Live is brought to you by Arsenal Fishing, boosted by Powerhouse Lithium. Got codes in the description if you're looking to save some money on both Arsenal and Powerhouse Lithium. And otherwise, let's dig into this. So I hadn't talked to you recently, but I had talked to other people that had rumors. It was pretty much spot on with what I was hearing. Is it what you were expecting, Clark?
Yeah, I mean, early in the season, I knew there'd been talks about it, and the word was there was going to be like 3 events, and then the EQs, and then come about. Ish called me. I roomed with Ish this year, and he called me from when was it, Leech, or was it lacrosse? I think it was lacrosse. He called me and told me what he had heard the format was, because the problem is Bassmaster sitting there dragging on, announcing the schedule and the formats and everything else. You've got anglers that are trying to make a living, trying to sell it to sponsors and everything else, that the longer it goes on, it takes away those opportunities where your sponsors are wanting to know. Because I'm filling out paperwork now for end of the year reports, like, what are you going to fish next year? And I'm like, well, I might fish the Toyota Series, but I'm looking at the opens. But if there's an overlap, I can't do this and this and this, or I'm going to do this other tournament circuit here in Texas, or I mean, it just gets all messed up. So they needed to put something out pretty quick.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to step through some of this, but I think largely myself, I think that's mostly good. I think you could nitpick a few things, but overall, I think it's pretty good. What's your gut check before we get into the details?
I put this opinion out there since I put it up on social media earlier today. Has any tournament organization ever got it 100% right? I mean, it's not going to happen. You can't make everybody happy. I'm sure when the schedule comes out of the actual lakes and everything, you're going to get negativity from this, that, and the other, and some guys are going to love it and whatever else. But as a whole, I think it is in the right direction. I actually really like this format that they're going with, because the 9 events was such a taxing deal financially and time-wise that it just, I don't know if I could keep justifying doing it. And this is a guy that does it full-time for a living.
Right. Yeah. So I'll break it down as best as I can. Interject if I miss anything. So currently, for the last 2 seasons, right, 2023 and 2024, it basically was a 9-event gauntlet, 3 full divisions of 3 tournaments that you had to fish if you wanted to make the Bassmaster Elite Series, and you had to finish in the top 9 in points and fish all 9 events. Going forward, at least for 2025, there's basically going to be 2 divisions instead of 3 divisions in the opens. So we're going from 3 event divisions to 2 4-event divisions. There basically be an Eastern division and a Central division, which is not new. They did that, I don't know, 6 years ago, maybe they were probably in that or something like that. I mean, that's been a thing. A 4-division Open East and Central. That's not new. That is something that they've done in the past. When they had the Open Championship, they had a similar format with an East and a Central.
Yeah, but they have 3 in an Open division. Is how.
But they have had 4, not unprecedented, but they have had 4 before. So,
the big was it going to be a North-South division, or was it going to be East-West? That was the biggest question possible of the format.
Sure. And like the year, if you go back to like 2006, Remitz won the Northern Open division. So they've done it both ways over the years.
Yeah.
Basically, you can choose to fish one division or the other or both, but they take the top 50 from each division that then go into a fall season, which is a 3-event circuit called the EQs. That fall event basically is the top 50 of each Central and Eastern, plus the 10 elite guys that fall out at the end of the season, plus 2 Bass Nation guys, basically the second and third place finisher from the national championship, and then any elites that want to fish it. I have a few questions on how that may work. We'll go back, but that's getting into the details. So you basically are going to have if everybody shows that gets invited, that's like 112, and there could be, and I don't know that they'll get 100% acceptance because some guys that are in like 47th, in the Eastern's gonna be like, boy, I'm 47th and I didn't cash a check in all 4 events and I can't afford it, right? Or they see the schedule and they don't go. So it's going to be somewhere between, let's call it 80 to 120 boats in the final EQ 3 tournaments, something like that, probably.
In the final EQ, but realistically, potentially it could be a 200 boat field. If all these elites want to say, I don't care about hunting season or I don't care about, football season or whatever else, if they're looking for more high-end tournaments to go fish, that's an opportunity for guys to go and fish more events, because for years that was always kind of one of the complaints that a lot of pros had, was they wanted more opportunities to fish big money events. And so, again, depending on schedule, if it's a good schedule of lakes guys want to go to, I could see them, going to those events. But the fall of the year is so brutal in the South. Even though it's going to November, I mean, it's so brutal in the South, most venues that they may go to. But say they start off in September at, Leech Lake or Champlain. I mean, it's going to be stupid good up north in September, with fall feed up and everything else. But our fall doesn't start in the South until late October a lot of times, or mid-November even.
Yep. And those tournaments say they're going to be September through November.
Yep.
So, yeah, now, September in the South sucks. September up north, pretty good. So,
I'd rather them go to Rayburn for an EQ event in the fall than go for an open in the spring where everybody can catch them, because I think local advantage is the greatest in late summer and fall period when fishing is terrible, that if you're local on a lake, you do have the utmost advantage during that window of time.
I think unless it's some kind of like amazing schedule that everybody is stoked about, we're talking about 90 to 120 boats probably for the EQs.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be more, could be less, but I think that's a pretty fair. So also change, we're going from 9 to 10 spots. So instead of 9, assuming they're going to keep the same, but they didn't really spell this out, but I assume that means 10 elite anglers will get relegated and 10 EQ anglers will go up.
We have to assume, but we have no clue what's going to happen with the future of bass when guys are leaving BPT, legend exemption spots, whatever else. I think we've been proven that BASS is going to do whatever they want to do for their brand or what they think on their business side of it. So they're going to modify rules.
They'll definitely flex 5 or 10 spots depending on what they think is best for the organization.
They don't, if somebody's going to get grandfathered in, because, there's a bunch of guys potentially with legend exemptions, and we don't know how they're going to work all that and everything else.
So they are maintaining the winning you're in for all the opens plus the EQ. So now we're going from 9 open spots to 11 open plus EQ spots into the Classic. Which I have a question about that I'm going to circle back on because it makes me a little nervous as a Bass Nation angler, but we'll get back to it. And the entry fees for the opens remain at $2,000, but for the 3 Bass Nation EQ events, they go to $3,500.
Correct.
So I assume that'll come with bigger payouts, bigger entry fees.
And that's what people have to understand. For there to be legit payouts, I don't care what inflation does, whatever. It doesn't matter if you're doing a pot tournament at your local lake. You have to pay big entry fees if you want big payouts. The big deal is the cost of the expenses to go do the event are the same for a BFL regional, a high school championship, a Bassmaster Elite Series. It costs the same in gas, food, lodging, licenses, boat ramp fees, everything else. But you don't make money on those other events until you pay a big entry fee to potentially win money.
Yeah. So basically, did I miss anything in the changes? Okay.
Not that.
So basically this year, you were definitely in for 9 tournaments, $18,000 entry fee, and travel to 9 tournaments.
Yep.
Like, basically, you had to put the deposits down for the whole season at the beginning of the year.
$800 deposits for 9 events, so it's at $7,200.
$7,200 right off the get go. So going forward now, in theory, you could fish one division, and if you finish in the top 50, then you go to the 3. That's 7 tournaments that cost you 15 grand. So you're gonna have $3,000 less in entry fees and travel to 2 less events.
Yep.
Now, if you're a baller and you really want to take a shot at it, right, then you can fish 11 events, right? You can fish both divisions, and that's going to put you in 11 events for 22 grand. Like if
Yeah.
you're like, which I could see guys like Ish doing, right? Guys that are like,
No,
you
I
know,
don't doing that.
I'm not saying they would for sure, but I could also see where guys will start in both divisions and then maybe drop out of one, or I don't know. It'll be interesting.
I
But
don't think so, because I think most of the guys that feel like they can make that top 50.
yeah, the top 50 is not a high threshold.
No, that's not a high threshold. But if you break down on one event, it's a whole other situation.
Sure.
And I'll put it in perspective point wise. Okay, this year I think I finished, and I might be wrong. You could fact check me on this. I finished like 28th at the first event at Okeechobee, 20th at Ouachita, and that had me in 10th in the points. And then at Santee Cooper, I finished like 100th, I think, something like that, 118th or somewhere in that range, and that dropped me to like 18th in points, or And then I finished like 40th at Logan Martin, and that had me right there around 21st in the points.
You were well within, on your way to the EQs next year.
I was in the hunt right there. Okay. But if you take just those finishes, it doesn't seem like those finishes are great if you have the Ricky Bobby mentality of, if you're not first, you're last. But if the end game is making the EQ events, that seemed like a legit, finish right there, to finish middle of the pack in that top 50 right there with a 20th, a 28th, one bomb at 118th, but you still beat over half the field that 118th. So if you can avoid any sort of bombs, if you can finish in the top 100 in those 4 events, at every event, you're going to make the top 50 in points.
Yeah.
So, as a business standpoint, if I'm looking at it, or a guy like Ish is looking at it, you have to look at it like, okay, I feel like I can fish one division, make that top 50, which leaves me open to go fish the Toyota series, which are closer to the house. 2 of them are on
or
Rayburn.
the MPFL, or right, like for BPT guys that maybe want to dip their toe in, they can enter one division. If things start going their way, they could make a decision late in the season. Like, it invites a lot of participation from a lot more people, for sure.
Yes. And so, the math doesn't math to go fish 8 opens. Okay. It's just
a
like
few guys that do it. But
just like fishing all 9 of these, that the math didn't math up. I live outside of Shreveport, Louisiana, guide at Rayburn. So this is kind of my realm over here. But, it's like that last EQ this year going to Hartwell, that's 1,000 miles away. The math doesn't work out that way to go fish those where you're not winning a lot of money in those opens. It's just not worth gambling for a classic slot right there. Because all of a sudden on the east, what if one of them's at Champlain, Potomac River, Okeechobee? I mean, Okeechobee is, every one of these places is, over 1,000 miles from the house. And so the math doesn't work out to do it like that. And again, for guys that think that they're going to make the top 50 and one to, they're not going to fish both divisions unless their sponsors dictate you have to fish X amount of these tournaments. And there's a lot of sponsors that do. Like if Skeeter and Yamaha called me and said, hey, you need to fish all 8 of the opens and the EQs, then I'm like, well,
like, yeah, in your position, right? There's more upside for you to like get into a division of the Toyotas closer to home and have a chance to make a Toyota championship.
Well, no, the upside for me as a guy running this as a business is go fish those opens and then guide the rest of that time and take sponsors, clients.
Or whatever. It gives you more options, whether you want to fish more tournaments, guide more, do more videos, right? Like right? Like you got more opportunities to diversify your income streams, whether it's through tournaments or through other channels.
Because fishing is not a business, decision that maths up very well. I've always said, 50% of this is fishing, the other 50% is the business. And, you have to hustle hard on the business side of it and look at every opportunity you get. There's always more tournaments, and most sponsors that I have, and most of the bigger sponsors in the industry, they don't weight the AAA level events like Opens as high as some of this other stuff, and so it doesn't make sense to go fish all 8.
Yeah. Yeah, there'll be a few guys. I don't think it'll be very many. I do think it's gonna definitely invite more anglers to dip their toe in. Guys that fish the MPFL, guys that fish MLF, they'll definitely, even signing up, putting your deposits down for 4 of them, and then like if you get on a roll and it starts to make sense, and you're having a bad season somewhere else, you might pull the pin and go one way or the, you know what I mean. So I think it's going to invite more participation from anglers that are in it already. Look at what I did, right? I fished one division. So guys that do that, all of a sudden it's like you get on a little bit of a roll and you're like, well, maybe I will do the EQs, right? Because you don't have to commit until, August or something, or September probably. So
But
like you fish a single division on your home pond and you win that one, right? All of a sudden you're like, well, now I got a little pocket change to chase the EQs, right?
yeah,
Like, so,
but if you 7th, do you look at going to the EQs and spending all that much money? Most people will, just because they think that they've got a shot, because things went right and they got lucky and caught, a 6-pounder in this one tournament, which propelled them to make in the top 50, because they had a 20th place finish and an 80th and 120th and 130th place finish, and they still finished in the top 50, and they're going to say, well, I qualified, I'm going to go. I never know when I'm going to have this chance again, but that's just it. It's kind of like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Okay, you grab the idol, you run, and you get past the poisonous darts. Okay, then the next step is the snake pit. Okay, and then once you do that, that's getting through the EQs. Then the next step is, okay, the giant ball is going to steamroll you, and that's you trying to come up with the money and everything else to go to the elites when you do qualify. So it's like every level, there's hurdles and adversity that people have to face. It just helps you take smaller bites out of that adversity the way that they've got the new open format set up.
Yeah. They didn't specify this, but it have to reset because the guys coming down from the elites won't have any points. So it's going to start from 0. It's going to be a 3 tournament sprint at that point, which you're going to have to catch them really good in those 3 tournaments. Like you're going to probably have to average a top 25 finish or something, or better. Or like it's.
No,
I don't know. It could be. I mean,
I don't think you will, because again, look. Remember what my finishes where I was sitting at in 10th. I had a 28th and a 20th, and I was in 10th after 2, and then 118.
It's not a 200 boat field anymore either.
Yeah, you're right. So that's probably even
100 boat. I mean, it's going to be a 100-ish boat field, and you're I don't know if you want to call it, the donators are already called out, right?
well,
like I don't know.
Thing to keep
The guys like me are already called out. The guys that donated didn't cash any checks all season are already gone.
The thing that you're also losing sight of is, those fall events, there's going to be one of the events that is going to be a grinder event where it's like, if you catch a limit, there's a good chance you are going to make a check if you catch a limit both days. Because that's historically the schedules they go to in the fall. It's like that.
So that
look at that Elite Series event they had at Chickamauga that one year, and how bad the weights were. I think it was the COVID year.
That's my one question, and I've talked to a buddy about, is like, so basically 43% of the schedule, right, for the guys that fish the opens and the EQs, and also maybe the deciding factor is fall fishing all of a sudden, which doesn't really correlate to the elites once you get there.
No, I like it, especially if they spread the schedule out, because they're going to be more grinder type. I don't think scoping is, again, we make these assumptions about scoping all the time. Oh, it's muddy, the scopers aren't going to catch them. Oh, there's current, the scopers aren't going to catch them. Well, they catch them every time. But I think that time of year, you get where the shallow bite is just as dominant as a scoping type situation. And with less people in the field, then you're able to go run shallow patterns to have success. Put on the square bill, put on the spinner bait, put on the buzz bait. I mean, theoretically, somebody could make the elites by just running those 3 events with nothing but a buzz bait in their hand.
And that's the thing, is like it's with a 3-event schedule. It's hard. It's going to be hard to say it was a diverse schedule and that they were a well-rounded angler at that point.
It is, unless they say, hey, we're going to one in Florida. Say And then we're
Right,
gonna
like, unless they do, like, Champaign, Florida, and Rayburn or something,
yeah,
like, whatever, like
they go to Table Rock, they go to Toho, and they go to Potomac River. I mean, those
right,
are three very diverse situations. Or
but
you throw
in it
smallmouth.
it feels like it's gonna end up being that's probably unlikely, and it's probably gonna be, like it's gonna lean one way or the other, right? They're gonna do 2 northern ones and then, like, a middle of the country, or they're gonna do I feel like we'll see, but
We don't know. I mean, there's a lot of
right,
rumors and speculations about
yeah.
venues. I've heard through the grapevine about some. Uh, we're not going to get into that on here, but it, it. Bottom line is, I've learned from doing this for so long. You look forward to certain events, and you end up doing well on the ones that you just stumble on, and you just end up catching them. And they're all worth the same amount of points. They're all worth the same amount of money. So you take them all in stride. You do the same sort of homework. You do all the same work. You get ready for them, and you just take them as they come. Now, with that being said, one thing that I wish is that when they announce the schedule for the Opens after Hartwell, is what I'm hearing, is that they don't announce the Elite or the EQ schedule.
Oh.
And it's blind, and that they announce it after the Opens are over, and then they say, all right, everything's off limits. As soon as we announce this schedule, it's off limits for info. You can't go to the lake, none of that. And that would be like the sweetest situation, because if they want it to be as close to the elites as possible, they're going to have to monitor that no info rule and everything else for those events.
And it's gonna be dynamic. It's good, but it's also gonna be like, right, like you fish 4 tournaments and then they put up that 3 and you're gonna be like some people are gonna be super stoked the 3 events that pop up, and other people are gonna be like, that's like, yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting. Um, so yeah, basically you won't know the final 3 until after you've made the top 50 or you've been cut from the elites. One of the
That's
two.
that's what I hope. But they'll probably announce
I
all
think
of them.
that's what it said in the press release, I thought.
No, I don't think it specified that part. I think it's all going to be announced later on.
All right. I thought that was insinuated, but anyways. Um
Because again, it's
so
we don't know what other rule changes they're going to have. I mean, the rumor is we're going to 2.5 to 3 days of practice. That's rumored, but is that for the EQs or is that going to be for the Opens? Because it used to be the Opens was Wild West, and they didn't even have an off limits for practice days, and that's one of the biggest hurdles on fishing the Opens anyway. Is the lakes get beat up? You got this amount of people and everything else.
So one of my concerns is we've added 2 more spots from let's call them the opens to the Bassmaster Classic. Are they adding spots to the Classic, or are those coming from somewhere else? And when they say the second and third place guy from the Bass Nation are going to the EQs, it makes me think there's only going to be one Bass Nation qualifier to the Classic, and I think that would suck. Personal opinion.
That sounds like it potentially could be, but again, I don't know how to speculate that. But it seems like that turned into alphabet soup on qualifying anyway, and it's been changed so much through the years. Because I remember when I started, it was like, all right, I was in a bass club, and the top 6 go to this tournament, this state tournament, and you qualify for your state team. And then they had what 5, 6 individuals from their state go fish this regional, and then so many from the regional qualify for the nationals. And now what is it like? Hey, we got a qualifier here at Eufaula, Oklahoma, Alabama, in the top 20 for mid or whatever, they qualify for the one at Grand. And then
The national championship used to be 50 some anglers, and 3 went. And now it's going to be 250. And this year there's still 3 anglers going. But in the future, if they only have 1 spot, then we have 250 guys fishing for 1 spot. So
yeah, it's gotten away
anyways,
from the bass club dynamic that the federation used to be back, but that was in the 90s, I think, more than anything.
yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. Let's not get down that rabbit hole tonight. You got a guide trip in the morning. We can't be talking about the Bass Nation all night.
That's and I'm not qualified to talk about it anyway. I fished all that when I was in high school,
yeah.
but I don't know the dynamics of it.
The one thing we don't know, and I would assume based on history and precedence, is that the elite guys that aren't being relegated won't. I mean, their points will count, but I don't think they will block anybody from requalifying.
No, I've heard
They didn't specify that, but based on how they've operated in the past, I would assume that won't happen.
Yeah, and
Unlike BPT, which pretty much does the opposite. They protect their own. The BPT guys can drop down and block it. I think the elite guys are just coming down fishing for monies and trophies.
yeah, and I've
but
heard
they
that
didn't specify, so that's an unknown. But
and heard that they weren't. But again, what you've heard and rumors and speculation don't
right.
count. But that's the one thing that I've seen the most on social media since the announcement, or on forums. Like I look at Texas Fishing Forum and Bass Boat Central and stuff periodically, and that was the thing that people didn't like, is that okay, the elite guys can just jump in and they're not having to qualify. And I'm thinking, well, they did qualify, but in a negative way. If you're in that bottom tier that's having to fish for your livelihood at that event, we're qualifying a positive way to get there, and they're qualifying a negative way to get there. And there's going to be some guys that don't make it through the elites that say, I'm done
Yeah,
financially, I'm
they're not
done,
going to even.
or I'm not making a living doing this. I mean, everybody has to take a hard look at where they're at every year.
But this is a softer landing spot than going all the way to 9 opens for sure.
Yes. I
And
mean,
it gives you a chance to requalify before the next Elite Series even starts.
yeah. I mean, it's
So
you sit there and you can have this conversation around drinking beers with your buddy. All right, what Elite Series guys do you think could run the 9 tournaments to get there again, or what BPT anglers could run the 9 tournament gauntlet to get to requalify? And it's not something you want to talk about on a public forum, obviously. But
yeah, this definitely, I would say the biggest advantage is for the EQ guys, or the elite guys falling down. They can fish 3 tournaments and get right back in and be there. Like, so if look at a Josh Douglas, solid angler, veteran angler, right? He had like he just missed the classic one year, finished 70
yeah,
something the next year. And if you flip flop those, he's still fishing on the elites, right?
yeah.
So like those kind of guys to get caught in the numbers to come down and be able to fish a 3 tournament circuit, it's a nicer landing spot than then automatically you're thrusted into the 9 event gauntlet, right? So I think that is
Daryl Gleason, another example. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
I'm good friends with Daryl, known him since before he was fishing on tour. And I used to send my Toledo Bend guide trips, and he'd send the Rayburn guide trips to me. And again, you make your career and your living doing this. People don't realize the magnitude of all of a sudden it's like you're getting fired if you don't requalify, or there's a technicality. Like, I mean, Carl Jacobson right now is the first man out because of technicalities. What if Bass doesn't change that rule? Is your whole career over? Are sponsors going to drop you? I mean, people say, well, you should have caught them better. But again, there's more to it than catching them in this business. So it is a better place to go than just saying flat out, you're done. Gives you 3 more opportunities to make it, and fish your butt off, and hopefully it works out for you.
So the other thing that's unclear is can the elites fish the opens?
They probably can, but I don't know why they would want to, because there's not money in
other
it.
than fishing for a classic spot. But
Hey, and again, they'd have to fish all 4 to qualify. All that's going to be heavy dependent on the schedule. If there's an event there that's in your backyard that you think you have a legit chance of doing extremely well at that event because you're the man there, that would make a big difference. It's kind of like, okay, what if they're going to Murray, or another South Carolina lake? Don't you think Patrick Walters would want to jump in all those? I mean, perfect
right,
example.
possibly.
Exactly. So a lot of it's going to be dependent on the schedule, on what guys decide. The only people I could see fishing all 4 of the opens would be some of the Japanese anglers anyway. That is their job. They're here full time. They don't really have families here, a lot of them, that they're here to work. And they fish all the time to keep them sharp and to gain experience. And I could see, again, we saw Kenta Kimura doing it. And, there's a lot of, Fujita did it this year, and several of those other guys, would do it just for that reason. But there's other options to make more money, than fishing those, So, I mean, like I said, Toyota championship is a better
there's
option.
some people that complain about elite guys dropping the opens. I don't have any problem with it, but some people think that's a bad luck. But whatever. So, but they didn't specify that, so that's an open question. The other thing we don't know is where the technology rules are going to roll down to. I would almost guarantee the EQs will have the same rules as the elites, but we don't know what the opens will be, and if they will follow the same, or are they going to be a little more wide open? And then once you get to the EQs, you got so.
I would tell you this: if you're fishing the opens or have aspirations of fishing them next year, I wouldn't rig your boat yet until that rule comes out. You know. But I don't see it being stricter than what the elites are. I'm sure it's going to be right on par.
So, yeah, I can see the opens being more lax, and then the EQs you got to be locked in. But I could also see all of them following the elite rules. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is
So
there
I
any
mean,
questions I didn't ask that are on your mind that you're still wondering
no, I mean right now it's just a hurry up and wait situation. Wait for
besides
the
the schedule?
yeah to
Yeah.
figure out what's going to happen. Because I mean I've already closed the door on 2024 when I opted to drop out of the elites. You know, I dropped to 33rd in the points with 3 left to go, and I crunched the numbers and said, you know, this doesn't make sense for me to go to these last 3 opens for experience, for a good time, for ego or whatever. And again, you hear me say it a lot on a lot of things I talk about on podcasts. It's a business, and it did not make sense financially to go to those events just to gain experience for the good time of fishing Leech Lake. You know, I love fishing lacrosse, but at the same time, I knocked out videos for sponsors during those weeks. You know, I did guide trips during those weeks, and it's getting everything ready for 2025 at this point. I don't hunt. I just keep hustling on the business side of it on the back end.
So Clark is going to head out here in a few minutes. So if you guys got any questions in chat specifically for Clark, fire them up quick. Otherwise, I'll be hanging on chatting for a while. But if you guys got anything specific for Clark, let me know. It sounds like you haven't made a decision, but you're definitely going to look at the Opens division, and it's still on the plate for you based on this.
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
schedule dependent and other things, but you'll definitely be taking a hard look at it. Sounds like.
Yeah, I don't know what my sponsors are doing next year. I don't know what I'm selling them yet. You know, if they put out the schedule, and you know, this is an example that I give. What about like Joe's Muffler Shop? I'm making that name up, and he's got 14 shops between Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana. If I've got 2 or 3 tournaments that fall into that region right there, I can go sell it to him. But he doesn't care about if I'm off in New York fishing or Florida fishing. It doesn't affect him. So by them dragging and not putting the schedule out, it's affecting potential new sponsors. You know, take Apache. I've been with Apache for 7 years. They do industrial scaffolding, pipe insulation, painting, sandblasting, things like that. You know, they've got a office outside of Pickwick, in Counce, Tennessee. So it's like, oh, that's a selling point right there. Okay, I can go there to that office and do some promotional stuff. Or they might do work up at St. Clair up there with some of the refineries outside of Detroit, on the south side of Detroit. I know they have contracts up there. Well, then I could sell that as, okay, when I'm up there, I can do some promotional stuff. But with them dragging on with the schedule, it makes, again, the business side of it that much trickier on lining things up. So I don't know what I'm doing fully till the schedule comes out, because I don't know what's going to conflict with the Toyota series. And again, it's what are my sponsors going to pay me to go do next year?
Yeah, absolutely. So otherwise, you've been busy doing your elite guide service.
Yeah, it's they're biting. I mean, if y'all follow, especially on TikTok, I've started posting more on Instagram and Facebook, but they throttle me back there more so than TikTok does. I'm doing a lot of screen capture videos. If you're wanting to learn how to use your side imaging, you don't necessarily have to go hire me for a trip. But I'm teaching people how to go find fish and what to look for on your units. If you want to check that out, like I said, I'm a lot bigger on TikTok than any other platform. But if you are interested in going out and catching a bunch down in East Texas, I guide at Sam Rayburn and some other smaller lakes. So if you're interested in going out, give me a call.
Yeah. Do you go by Clark Ream or Elite Angler? I forget Academy on
both.
Okay.
All jumbled up.
So search Clark Ream or Elite Angler Academy on your platform of choice, and he's got some cool screen recording videos. He's got live sonar. He's got side imaging. He's got 2D. He's whatever. I mean, he does not just scoping. So lots of cool stuff.
And people are either educational or they're entertaining. I'm not funny. Okay, so I try and be educational in my videos, put out the information, try and put some stuff that's not always talked about and regurgitated by everybody else. With the electronics, I try and simplify all of it because it's not that difficult. It's not that complicated. People say there's no substitute for time on the water, and my deal is there's no substitute for quality time on the water. There's a big difference just being out there and doing things that are productive to making you a better angler. And that's what I try and teach my videos. That's what I try and teach on water.
All right. What kind of odds will you give me on Easton Fothergill being the 2025 Bassmaster Elite Series Rookie of the Year?
I gamble enough on tournament fishing.
You wouldn't put much money against that, I'm guessing.
No. I mean,
especially because, like, I mean, there's some guys that are really good, like Dakota Eber, but he won't be a rookie.
no.
So, and there's going to be talented other guys for sure, but he looks pretty good out there. Catches them.
So what do we have going into this last event? We basically have it's a 3 or 4 man race for the final spots.
I think so. Yeah, I haven't crunched the numbers. Ronnie just had a baby, so he hasn't put on any point breakdowns. So
Yeah, I think ninth and 10th are tied right now. So, and
yeah,
then there's a pretty big gap. Like Ish is in
yeah. There's
14th.
only a couple guys that Ish is probably one of the guys that legitimately has the last spot, and he's got a top 10 and he needs help.
He
I
needs
think.
to screw up, and they have not screwed up. And this might be a bold statement, but I think as a whole, when you look at the finishes that guys have had, I think this top 10 or top 9 has been more consistent than last year's top 9. I'm
You
sure
have to
you'll.
look at the point numbers to look at the total points, but
Yeah.
it's close. I mean, it's
I mean, we kept thinking guys were going to fall off at every event. We look at the list and say, well, this guy historically, or that guy's not good at this or that. And it just, every event, top 40, top 40, top 40, boom, boom, boom. It's like same guys over and over again. And I mean, hats off to them. I mean, they're good, but when you look at the standings again, 11th through 30th place, it's the same names have been there last year. It's the same names that have been around for a while also. The Austin
yeah. I mean,
Cran.
it's basically they're the guys that they haven't fallen lower than 12th or 15th, right?
Yeah.
Like Emil Wagner fell to like 12th or something for a while, and now he's back up there, and we're going to his home pond. So like, lock
Yeah.
him in. You think Eastern Fothergill's gonna be able to scratch together a few stragglers and get some points on a herring lake? Yeah, he'll be just fine, right? Like there's is Dakota Eber, he'll get the bare minimum points needed to get in there. Like so, like
Oh,
the top 3, 4, 5 guys are absolutely locked, and then you got the bottom. They probably just need a top 40 and they're in, right? And so like guys like Ish and a few other guys need basically a top 10 and some people to stumble or not
yeah.
get in or
So Ish is like 100 points out, and he's in 14th place. And so, going into the last event last year, there was multiple guys that had an opportunity. Milliken, perfect example, finished. He was like an 18th, I think, or something like that, and then he finished third, and he jumped up there in the points because there were some guys that stumbled. But there's enough gap this year for the guys in that 5th through 10th place. There's enough gap between them and 12th that nobody's going to be able to make that jump. So we'll see. I mean, they're going to catch them. I mean, it's Scoper's delight, with game piles. It's going to be who's going to gamble and go for largemouth. And that would be Ish's backdoor in is, all right, he's going to pick the frog up. He's going to pick the topwater up. He's going to do that and just gamble on a monster bag.
will it be enough? Can he, if he catches 17 pounds a day of largemouth,
he
but
wins.
if the scopers go out and catch their 13, it's not going to create enough gap probably, right? Like,
no. And so but he's got the fortitude to go do that. Because I mean, he showed up with like 1 or 2 days of practice at one event last year, and I'd already patterned him out. It was like, all right, easy top 45 right here, and it was like it was automatic. You could call your shot and catch him. I got paid in that event, and he found something the last day of practice, and it was like, dude, I got a chance to win. And I was like, yeah, but you're gambling. And on day 1, he fell on his face. And then on day 2, he caught like 17 pounds. So, I mean, he's hero 0, and so he's going to do that at that last event because he knows he has to hit a home run. But that's the way he fishes anyway. I fish for points. I fish for checks. He fishes to win. It's weird working with him is the dynamic this year, sharing information, like explicit information was there. And I worked with a lot of guys through the years, and it was just different working with him, and our styles were totally different. So that was kind of a cool situation.
nice. Play says, how many current elites don't pay the deposit in 25 and leave? I don't think. I mean, so we're talking about guys that are not, they're guys above the point level.
And it also depends on the back end.
Right.
If they do that one major deal, a lot of these guys aren't going to mortgage their house off. They're not going to jeopardize their home life, to chase a dream. And that's
I think it would be sponsor related. I don't think anybody's so upset or mad or
No.
doesn't like the schedule that they're just going to drop. If it would be, it's because they're not getting the support from their partners. And
That if
and
someone
I don't think it'll be that many. Like Clay says, he says 5, and Carl gets to stay. I don't think you're going to see 5. It might be like 1 or 2.
no, no, and again, it's you don't know whose family situation because there's stuff behind the scenes all the time that you don't know. Like this guy's wife might have cancer or something, or his family, his kids are playing ball and he doesn't want to do that anymore, or they crunch the numbers and say, all right, we're not making a living doing this, and so we got to figure out what's going on with the rest of our lives. They're not all silver spoon kids. They're not all rich dads. These for the longest time, most pro anglers were blue collar type guys that just left a job at the refinery or whatever else and made a run at it. And those are the ones that you typically see that fall off because they can make a living doing something else a lot easier, better than what they're doing now. This is a year by year sport and living. You don't every year it's different what you're going to make.
Yeah, Carl Johnson finished 44th. He's not in danger.
44th of what this year?
Points in the AOI.
Yeah, but the problem
he was flirting with 70 before they went to the Northern Swing, but he had a good finish and moved up.
No,
everybody above 70 stays, regardless of what your rolling average is.
Okay, because I mean, Gerald Swindle was making those videos about him the other day that he's the first man out because that rolling average kills him.
Yeah, he might be the first man out of Classic at 44th.
No, it was to requalify because that rolling average when he fell out of the elites. His standings, he had like a couple bad years, dropped out of the
yeah,
elite.
I think he's probably the first guy out, but that would if he finishes 71st next year, he could be out.
Yeah.
But if he's above 70, that's the safe line. They've established that rule. Everybody above 70 gets another year.
Okay.
Regardless of how bad your rolling average is.
Yeah. And so like my situation is I don't know because I heard that the rolling average goes to 2017 or something like that. Or so like 2013, I think was it 13 or 12 was my last year on the elites. And I dropped out halfway through to get custody of my kid. So it's like, okay, I finished way, way down in the points because I didn't go to all the events, but I had to be in court to get custody of my kid. So I had to go miss events. So did they penalize me for that for the rest of my career? So at what point does the rolling average, get nullified? And, it brings up a point. Okay, I've relearned how to fish. I'm a hell of a lot better angler than I was back then. Because when I made the elites in 2008, I wasn't ready. You think you know things, but you don't. You go fishing and you catch them, but it's a whole different ball game when you're at this next level.
Absolutely. It was like Chris is a Clark fan. He said you could listen to you all day.
Was that Chris Blank?
Yep.
I don't have my glasses on. I can't see.
Yeah. Tyler says Easton winning at Leach, but Carl in the Classic. So.
Who knows? I mean,
right. Well,
Bass is going to do what they're going to do, just like MLF is going to do whatever they want to do to benefit how they want it to benefit. That's the one thing we've really learned over the last several years. But rule changes, everything else. I mean, they're going to do whatever they think as a business level. Because I remember Boyd Duckett sitting there in meetings when I was fishing the MLF Invitationals, or it was before this MLF Pro Circuit, and him saying, "Guys, trust us, trust us, trust us." Our salespeople say we need to make these changes because then they can sell it to help you guys. And so it's like we're going to change the rule what we've been selling anglers and having them believe and understand for years, and we're going to change things to benefit how we want it to benefit our guys are there. And Bass has been flip-flopping and stuff the last couple of years too. So that's pro fishing.
Absolutely. It's a marketing platform. It's not a sport.
It is. It is. And that's why the magazine is still viable for them in a world of digital information. The print magazine is still a viable thing because on the business side of it, on the back end, that has value to them. So
cool. Yeah. I think net, I think we agree. This is mostly positive for the guys. It somewhat brings the working guy back in. At least he can dip his toe in and fish 4 events before he tells his boss to get screwed and he has to quit his job, right? To fish 3 events or whatever. But I
Well,
still think the Bass Nation qualifiers are a really good event. Like if the people that are complaining about the single division opens don't exist anymore, go fish the Bass Nation qualifiers.
yeah. And here's
You can
something.
literally fish 2 tournaments for a $400 entry fee and make the classic.
Yeah, that's a good way. It's not easy though. Look, I can tell y'all firsthand, it's just as hard to win one of those as it is to win an Open, as it is to win a Toyota Series. You still have to catch the winning bags on that fishery for what it would take to win any sort of local team event, any sort of local BFL, any of that stuff. It still takes the same sort of weights to win at every level, no matter what caliber of angler, when you're talking about these traveling events, national level type deals. Now I'll tell you a business idea I thought of also while we're sitting here, sponsorship wise. What if I were to sell the Opens as a title sponsor to a sponsor, and then sell the EQs as another one for that next batch of entry fees?
Rewrapped or yeah.
Rewrapped or an incentive program with a sponsor to say, okay, if I make the EQs, it's going to cost this much. And
so like I only need 25 to be my title sponsor for one division of the Opens. But then if I make the top 50, then you're in for another 20 or whatever the numbers are, something like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a way I could foresee somebody trying to sell it in the future as well. But again, it still boils down to what's the schedule, and you better deliver on the other intangibles. When are we going to?
I guess we don't. They also haven't talked about live coverage, so I would assume we're still going to get Final Day Open live. Are we going to get one day at the EQs? Are we going to get multiple days at the EQs? Are the EQs 3 days? They didn't really specify that either. We don't know what the EQs are as far as days or their cuts. Like they haven't really talked about any format for EQs either. So
I could see them airing every day of the EQs live because there's no other game in town. All the other circuits are done at that point, and so that's going to get viewership. And again, we don't know what contracts
maybe this is their way that they get. I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting. Are we going to get Saturday morning on FS1 during college football? I don't know. Be cool if we did, but I don't know if we will.
There's nothing that says the EQs aren't going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'd love for the schedule to be where practice, is Monday, Tuesday, or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then the tournaments, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Or have it where practice starts on a Thursday, or it would be Thursday, Friday, Saturday would be practice. Tournament would be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Because that way you only have to give up one weekend. You're still losing, the same amount of days of work if you're taking off a job. But by doing it like that, I'm not giving up another weekend away from my family.
And you're fishing less locals impacting the tournaments.
That, and you take a look at like MPFL at Pickwick, they tried to schedule that one where it was all the afternoon so they could get the current running, trying to optimize the event to highlight the fishery.
Yeah. I mean, and the local chambers are already getting their money on the weekends, so it's better for them to have you guys there on the week, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, I'm about to off here. I've got a guide trip in the morning, and I'll be gone for a couple
good.
days. Guiding. So look me up if you're interested in going and catching them.
Good luck and take it easy, and we'll stay tuned. Thanks, Clark.
Thanks.
All right. Good perspective from Clark. Appreciate him being able to jump on for the start of the show. We'll take a quick break, and I'll back and answer a few questions here in the chat. And
Are you ready to reel in your next home purchase or refinance? Supreme Lending's Dream Team can help guide you through the entire mortgage process, from pre-qualification to closing. We have a wide variety of home loan programs in our tackle box, including down payment assistance and first-time homebuyer options. You can ask HellaBass. He trusted us to help finance his home. Contact the Dream Team today by searching Supreme Lending Dream Team, or click the link below in the description, or scan the QR code on your screen.
All right, we're back. Thanks to the Dream Team. I'm hearing interest rates are dropping, so it could be a good time to refi if you made a purchase in the last year or so. I got a couple. Jesse Jummers, are you back then? Back from what? Back in the Opens? Highly unlikely. I think now that there's 2 divisions of 4, makes it even less likely that I will participate in the opens next year. Um, Chasing the elites is really not on my radar anymore. I was really hoping to, have some fun, learn a lot in the elites, and potentially chase a chance at a classic. Yeah, that'd be interesting. They haven't talked about EQ payback. Is this gonna be a 3-day tournament? Is it gonna be a 4 days? Is there gonna be a day 250 cut? Is it gonna be similar to the opens with a 10-man, final day cut? Is the payout structure gonna be top 45 like it is in the opens, or is it gonna be more like the elites where half the field gets paid? With a $3,500 entry fee on those, you would expect the payouts to be maybe closer to 75,000 to win instead of 40 or 50 like the opens. Yeah, still more questions to be answered, MJ, for sure. Clay says, if my instincts are right, Bassmaster is losing a huge fan base in 25, worse than a split with MLF. So I assume you're talking about front-facing sonar. I don't know. I don't see it, Clay. I don't think most people care that much. I think there's a vocal minority that speaks out about front-facing sonar. I could be wrong. My instincts say that. I don't think it's really going to affect him. Good reminder. If you watched this long, hit the thumbs up. It'd be awesome. Yeah, I think the elites will maintain, if not slightly grow. They've been growing based on what they say their numbers is. I don't really know what their numbers are. From my buddies and friends and people I talk to, and based on the people in the chat, I don't feel like as a whole, there are some people that are happy, some people that are upset, some people that won't watch it will. But I think kind of a steady, slow growth viewership for the Bassmaster Elite Series. And I think with the new schedule they have this year, it makes it more interesting. I think the schedule for the Bassmaster Elite Series, we really haven't talked about that, but they've got a lot of rivers, and I think Bassmasters has done a good job of, I want to say, reining in the scoping with the schedule. I mean, there will be guys that scope and catch fish on scope at every single tournament, but I don't think it will be dominated and as big a factor in the wins and top 10 as it was this year. Yeah, based on, let's say, East-West split, there definitely isn't going to be a division like this year to say like a bunch of Minnesota guys are going to go all in and be like, I got a couple events close to home, or some New York guys, right? I think, type of like the Eastern, I think you'll see like a Florida tournament, you'll see a Chesapeake, like Bay, Potomac River, a Douglas, a Cherokee, a Tennessee Lake, maybe an Alabama Lake, and then maybe one in like Champlain or something like that, right? You're going to get like a New York, a Florida, and a couple in the East Central. What is the Central schedule going to look like? You're probably going to get like an Arkansas River, a Texas, an Ozark Lake, and then maybe up to Minnesota or Kloss or Leech or something like that. But you may not even come up that far. You might get like Table Rock, Texas, Louisiana, something like that. We'll see. Yeah. So you say your reasoning, at least half the fan base from what you can see is overwatching, and I don't think that's the case. I really don't. My music selection, if I ever make the classic, yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, Sam. But I don't know. Yeah, the active chat does not like. That's like I said. It's a vocal minority. That's what I think. Should the Bass Nation have a top 5 camera in the boat? Is that possible? And what's the schedule like? So they haven't announced anything for the Bass Nation qualifiers. I don't think there's enough money in it, right? With $400 entry fees, so probably not. It'd be cool, but I think we're a ways away from that. Um, but I think you'll see something similar to this year, right? You'll have So we had Arkansas River, Eufaula, Champlain, and La Crosse. So you're going to probably just see a similar 4-quadrant. Maybe St. Lawrence, something in Alabama again, maybe northern Alabama. Maybe a Gunnersville or Wheeler, something like that. Chickamauga, and then you're gonna, instead of going to Arkansas River, we'll probably see it on like Rayburn or Toledo Bend, and then maybe they come back to Leech, or maybe they go to like Table Rock or Lake of the Ozarks or something like that. That'd be my guess. It's going to be something like that. Yeah, I've definitely heard people say that, Jess, is that like you would definitely pay a premium subscription if you could pick which cameras for live. I think they're away from that, but I think that should be the way they're trying to go. You have been right before, Clay. Like when you said um, your best friend Ben Milliken would never make a top 10 in the opens. Remember when you said that, Clay? Yeah. Honestly, Darius, this is a fair point. I think the absence of Zona will have a bigger impact on the viewership of Bassmaster Live than whether they had front-facing sonar or not. If the 100 from the opens go to EQs every year, where do the bottom 90 go in EQs the following year back to the open? Yeah. Yeah, basically, you just have to re-sign up for the opens again. That's true. Yep. So you can fish 4 opens or you can fish 8 opens. It's your choice. You can fish 1 division or 2. You get a chance for a 3-event series, and if you make the top 10, you make the elites. If you don't make the top 10, sign up for the opens again next year. Yeah, so 2-year contract, they don't always do those in consecutive years though. But and the 2-year contract doesn't necessarily mean it could have to be an open. Sometimes those 2-year contracts could be a Bass Nation qualifier and an open, or it could be an elite in 2026. So they're not always consecutive years. Sometimes they say, we're signing a 2-year contract and we'll get you 2 tournaments in the next 3 or 4 years. But I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't an open on Leech for sure. Will the sport ever get away from wrapped boats and jerseys? Kills me to watch anglers with wrap boats and discount codes paying so much to wrap. So I think at the level of the BPT and the Elite Series, and to some degree the Invitationals and Opens, most of those guys running wrap boats are getting paid. Now, the guys that are running wraps in the local stuff, they're probably paying it out of pocket. But I think most of those guys are being paid. I don't think they're doing it for discount codes. Corey Weaver says this doesn't change much. It doesn't really help the working guy in the long run. Doesn't help the full-time guys have an opportunity to maintain a career without qualifying. It's not a huge shift. I would agree, Corey. It does allow you to dip your toe in the water for 4 events versus 9 and see where you're at. It's a little bit softer landing spot for the elite guys falling out to requalify. Like I said, if you want to be the working guy, fish the Bass Nation qualifiers. It's that easy. You can sign up for 1 or 4 qualifiers for $400 a pop. And if you're that good, you make the top 20 in one of them, you roll to the Bass Nation Championship, and you're 1 turn away from the elites. That's for the working guy. It's pretty simple. Yep. Well, that is your opinion, Corey. But obviously there's been some, this is somewhat angler driven, I would guess, and somewhat driven by the elite anglers. So I guess we'll see. Honestly, if I'm being candid, most of the guys that are falling out after 2 years are not going to be in the driver's seat when they go to the EQs. The guys that are in the top 10 to 20 points out of those 4 events are going to be the guys you want to watch, not the guys falling out. I think it'll be rare for EQ guys to requalify for the EQs, and it'll be mostly open guys coming up. So it may be more of a gesture more than anything. I mean, Sean, based on what I saw, Carl Jocumsen finished 45th or 44th in the points. And my understanding is anybody above 70 every year is safe. So Carl should absolutely be safe. Now, next year, if he finishes 71st, he could be out. But this year, he should absolutely be in, unless they change the rule and I didn't hear about it. Oh, Clay, you got plenty of time to soften up. How are you going to follow along Bassmaster Fantasy Fishing and be a threat and play the Beat HellaBass League if you don't watch? There is some sentimental. The Bass Nation, and probably my biggest complaint is the championship, right? Being 250 bolts instead of like 50 some. But the club guy is not eliminated because the club guys get all the priority entry into the qualifiers. And if the club guys from their state have all of the preferential treatment. So if the club guys sign up for the frickin' qualifiers, none of the at-large open guys can get in. So you can complain and not fish, but if you just sign up for the qualifiers, you can block out anybody that's not a club guy by signing up and getting your buddies to sign up for the qualifiers. I mean, you can want to see it go back. I don't think it's going back. Yeah, it could be 200 boats, and it really depends on the schedule, right? Like, if the EQ, if those EQs are like Arkansas River, Red River, like, what was the place that the opens guys like what was the tough fishery in Tennessee they went to, Watts Bar, right? Like, if they go to grimy fisheries and they're fishing in the South in September, they're barely going to have more than the 100 that sign up, right? Like, there will be guys in the top 50 that won't go. Like, there's going to be guys that finish in the top 50 after 4. They're going to see the schedule and go, that schedule doesn't line up for me. I ain't going. But if it's a really cool schedule on good fisheries at good times of the year, we could easily have 150 boats. I thought you were in bed already, Clark. Yeah. Hopefully they don't create a competition where they're blocking out the Toyota Championship or things like that, but only time will tell. Tyler, did you beat me in the visor gang? I'll have to look that up. I'll make a note. Get you a prize if you did. Enjoy your moral high horse, Clay. I wish you happiness and do whatever makes you happy in the long run. Hearing only 2 lakes are repeat lakes from the last 4 or 5 years. You're talking about the opens? So actually, I heard that you were going to be able to watch the MPFL on the MPFL website and not have to watch it on fixed TV, but then the hurricane wiped out the tournament. So, yes. And Clay, make sure you get your MPFL t-shirt and hat and order those up and send me a picture on Instagram. And I expect you to see at the weigh-ins if the MPFL comes close to you. But there was one other question about can anyone answer a question, novice? Will the coming hurricanes have any effect on the Florida tournaments? Potentially. I mean, it can definitely, if the hurricane hits hard enough in some of those lakes and regions, it can definitely create an issue where it can knock back the vegetation, which can affect future tournaments. But largely, it's not going to short term, yes. Like if you have a tournament this fall, definitely could have an effect. By the time we go through a full winter and go in the next year's spawn, it's going to shift some weeds. It could maybe shift a little bit of stuff, some productive areas. It could make some places muddy and it may take them a little while to bounce back. But I think over long term, not a huge. Now, St. John's River, being a tidal, more likely to be affected, something that actually connects to the ocean where you could have a strong salt surge. But lakes like Harris Chain and Kissimmee, probably not. Okeechobee being a little more wide open, it could get a little more, like it could really redistribute some of like the bogs and the reed heads and tear some of that stuff up. But overall, I don't think it's a huge deal. AJ, you didn't get the notification. Did you watch the recent video I dropped where I smashed him on your tube jig head? It's actually getting quite a few views. Whew. Well, just over an hour. I don't know. Some other people questions you got. Any other topics? Life 360 told me my child is home, so that's good. What is the HellaBass fall fishing schedule like? Well, first week of November we'll be at Grand Lake with AJ. I hope to get out. I looked at my schedule. There's no way I'm getting down before the cutoff to pre-practice Grand. I got kind of some busy weekends. I haven't been fishing since lacrosse. I'm hoping to get out and do some fun fall fishing, do some recording, do some things, but little fun fishing here in September, October, and then getting amped up for Grand Lake in November, and then all fun fishing after that. AJ says he got some orders hitting the website, which let him know the video dropped. That's good. Keep AJ busy slinging the lead for the finesse jigs and the stupid tube heads. Fishing this weekend, I'm not sure. I think my daughter has a game Saturday morning, and I have to travel Sunday night. So if I get out this weekend, it's only going to be like Crystal or Marion for a very short time. Colin tweeting from the grind season on YouTube checks in. No, I'm honestly, after fishing the opens, and my goal fishing the opens was not to make the elites this year, obviously, because I couldn't, was to maybe win one and make a classic. And at this point, fishing the nation and the qualifiers for the a chance at a classic is my main motivation. I, at this point, currently am not motivated to make the elites. And based on how I fish in the opens, I'm clearly not ready to fish the elites, if we're going to be brutally honest. Yeah, that's true. It is, to do what I did this year is going to cost you another $2,000 entry fees and another week of travel. And odds are that extra week is going to be far away from home. So, whatever I think I spent, we'll see where the videos come up in total, but I spent $6,000 entry fees, $2,000 probably to almost to do St. Clair, maybe almost $1,000 for the other two. So somewhere between $8,500 and $10,000 to fish the 3 opens. So now you can just add another one, and that one's probably gonna be further away from home. So it's gonna cost you anywhere between $12,000 and $15,000 to fish 4 opens. If I had to choose between mapping, side scan, or front-facing sonar as your only tech all season, what would you choose? I would choose mapping. Yeah, we didn't. I've talked to Marty personally about his national semifinal win on Lahamadou. So if I didn't mention this before, TBF, I didn't get to fish that because I was practicing for lacrosse. I usually fish the TBF semifinals, which is up on Lahamadou. And Marty won that as a boater. So Uncle Marty, who you've seen in the videos for practice videos, St. Clair and hanging out, he won, and he's going to go to the TBF National Championship, which will be in March. They haven't announced where that'll be. So maybe when we actually know where it's going, maybe we'll have him come on if he wants to. Nick, no MEA break. We're going to Chicago for MEA. So unlikely that I get up in your area this fall. Grand in November is the Bass Nation National Championship. So 200 to 250 boats fishing for 3 spots, the Bassmaster Classic, and the top guy goes to the Bassmaster Elite Series. I might fish O'Dowd or Orchard. I haven't been to Orchard in a while. I do tend to go to Orchard in the fall because in the summer it's a nightmare to try to get a spot at that tiny boat ramp. But usually by this time of the year, it's a little easier to get out there. Nick says the stupid heads are legit from AJ from Horseshoe. It does seem that Clay's a little extra salty tonight. Yeah. Banning mapping would have a bigger impact for sure. Yeah, I mean, MJ open divisions all across the country. Like, if you remember, like 3-4 years ago, they tried to expand the Toyotas to go to like 12 divisions. So like there'd be divisions almost everywhere, and they really weren't well attended, which really surprised me. Yeah, understood, Pale Rider. I mean, if you're not in the Bass Nation, it's you probably wouldn't know. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll do a little bit of a practice log for Bass Nation so we can get some AJ FaceTime on the YouTube channel. Maybe we'll do a live one night if the place we got's got decent Wi-Fi. But playing it by ear. So I got a leech video to get out. I've got lacrosse tournament video to get out. It's been busy. It's work, sports, recovering from the opens. Um, my take on big sponsorship making moves. We talk about like General Tire supposedly leaving MLF and things like that, and just with the economy, are certain sponsorships going to get cut back? I mean, it happens all the time. There's always shifts. Some anglers will be affected, some won't. We'll see. It doesn't seem to slow some of these opens guys down. It seems like they got endless amounts of money. Yeah, man, crazy times. But yeah, Darius, we're actually probably going to wrap it up here pretty quick, so there won't be much to watch in the morning. Good luck out on Kentucky Lake. Hopefully, you had a good time up at Lake St. Clair. I need to do a members stream here. It's been a minute. MJ says I feel bad for the people that bought those crappy tires because I saw them on MLF. Yeah, I've never owned a General Tire, so I can't speak to their quality. I only buy what's that discount tire. So got to do the throwback bass videos soon. Oh, like a watch party where we watch the old ones? Yeah, definitely. As we get into winter, that'll be definitely have time to do that. We got to make more time. The opens definitely cut into my time to be doing like the bonus stuff. But we'll do some. We'll double up some months in the winter to make up for some of that for sure. Do some giveaways. I got some stuff. We'll make it up to you guys. Carol said, getting to fish with the Freedom Squad next weekend at Gunnersville. That does sound fun. Sounds like you had a great time last year when you did that, Carol. So say hi to Gramps for me and have a good time. You saw some of the Open and MLF boats fishing. Well, we know the Elites is coming there, so there could be some elite guys up there scouting this time of year. And shout out to John Gunner Outdoors. He does some stuff on YouTube. We actually got to chat at the Copeland Street boat ramp after day 2 at the Open. We had a nice chat, so it was nice come saying hi, John. Glad you liked it. Finding Adventure for the Vermilion video. That's cool. Heard General Tire was leaving, but 2 big ones are coming in. No idea. Viagra and ChrisLindahl.com. That'd be my 2 guesses. How about those Vikings? I took my daughter to the Vikings game on Sunday. That was a blast. That was their first ever Vikings game, and they smoked the Texans. And it's Packers week this week. Ryan, I'm glad you got the Minnesota joke there. So, yeah. If you haven't checked it out, whole lot of fish catches in the Vermilion video. Yeah. So West Coast, I mean, here's the thing, Ralph, the West Coast isn't showing up. they had to drop the MLF Toyota Series in the West Coast because they couldn't get more than 60, 70 boats to show up for a Toyota Series. It wasn't financially viable for them to keep running the Toyota Series. So the anglers fish their local team stuff. They fish some of the regional stuff with it. Don't support the national trails when they come out there. National trails aren't going to keep coming. That's it's just the economics of it. Yeah, does it hurt Jim to see that Justin Fields is prospering in Pittsburgh? Little self-reflection, maybe it wasn't his fault. Yeah, and I think Bass did a good thing combining the one Bass with the Bass Nation. Seems like the best, smartest play. So yeah, so I think Bass Nation collaborating with one Bass to get some, access to the Bass Nation Championship. That was a good move. I like that. Thanks, Lauren. Hope you're out catching them. Hope you've been out catching them locally. Well, let's wrap this bad boy up. We'll keep it straight. I'm going to be traveling, hopefully getting home next week Wednesday night. But I think there's a soccer game, so to be determined what the stream is. But I do have, I think we're gonna have Tyler Williams on, T Willie, the jig guy, hopefully here in the next couple weeks, and I'll work on some other guests. But as always, here to help you guys catch more big bass and suck less. Thanks everybody. Have a great night. Be good, and we'll see you next time. And you can go bid on the Hall of Fame auctions. So Bass Fishing Hall of Fame has auctions. You can search it. There's links on Matt Pangrick's BTL page, links. So if you're, want to get some cool stuff in an auction and support the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, that is a thing. I'll throw that out there if anybody didn't know about that. Panger's been a part of that, so throw that out there. Otherwise, good night, all. And all the servicemen, women, first responders, thanks for your service. We don't say that enough.